Okay, welcome to the Australian Wagyu Association Technical Workshop, pre-AGM meeting for 2025. So pleasure to have you all in the room. Hope you appreciate the air conditioning today. Coming from New South Wales, a bit of a battle here last night, and I'm happy to say that I'll just sit in here all day if I can. The purpose of today is just to give you a little bit of a technical update on some of the work that AWA has been doing with the member funds that you've been contributing to the association over the last 12 months. And then we'll have a few more industry talks that are giving us an update on progress with artificial breeding technologies and some of the applications that can make available for us in the future. There we go. So if you've seen your emails this morning, you would have noticed that we've just put out an announcement that the Australian Wagyu Association in 2026 will be moving to publish our own Wagyu Breeding Values. So AWA has been working for 4 years to create its own genetic evaluation system, which we're now ready to launch. After a significant program of work, the AWA board reviewed updated genetic parameters, so they're the things that drive the statistical analysis to produce EBVs. The board reviewed those updated parameters in February and March 2025. The AWA genetic evaluation is currently being run internally on a weekly basis, so we will have Hassan Alalou present very shortly. Hassan's our in-house quantitative geneticist working with the ARC Centre for Predictive Genomics, so Hassan will be joining us shortly. He's been running this pipeline internally, basically side by side with breed plans, so we can compare AWA, what we're calling Wagyu breeding values, with breed plan estimated breeding values. So the AWA genetic evaluation and Wagyu breeding values will be released to members in 2026, coinciding with us ceasing work with ABRI and breed plan. So a big step forward for the Australian Wagyu Association. AWA's decisions and planning are not a reaction to items published in the rural media regarding ABRI or breed plan, but are the results of a long planned strategy to provide more robust and reliable genetic information to members. The move to AWA's independent genetic evaluation secures our future capability. The genetic evaluation as a capability has moved forward significantly over the last 5 years. There's been a lot of progress in the area. There are now multiple providers in the space, and the technology and software has advanced significantly. Yes, BreedPlan used to be the best provider of genetic evaluation services for the AWA, and it's fair to say a lot of the beef industry's genetic gain was built off the back of BreedPlan, but they're not necessarily the best provider for us anymore. So AWA has a responsibility to the membership to provide the best possible genetic evaluation with the best capability. The AWA board has thoroughly evaluated all the information provided to it and determined that implementation of AWA's genetic evaluation is the optimal solution for the future of the breed. So that announcement's gone out today, and I'll just walk you through some of the timeframes and steps so you can see the work that's gone into that program over the last 4 years. So as I've just gone over, in 2021, we started to work on how we were going to go forward with all of our genetic solutions and the providers that we used and contracted for those different technologies. So under the AWA 2020 to 2025 strategic plan, the AWA board, which has been through multiple iterations since then, has undertaken a deliberate, planned and global search to be able to identify the best technology providers for AWA to be using. And we did an analysis of capability versus needs. And based on that, in early 2022, we had quite a detailed scope of work that was put to the market. We started contracting partners to be able to develop our pipeline for us. So the strategic plan, as I've got it there, there's just a quote from Chantel Winter, but that was a very important document in forging the way forward for the AWA. That strategic plan under Chantel's stewardship in creating that document really set the framework for AWA to be able to think strategically, work out what it needed for its own destiny and implement those things. So if you look at Goal 2 in the AWA strategic plan from 2020 to 2025, it was about advancing and protecting critical genetic resources. So within that, we had multiple outcomes that we're seeking to achieve. But AWA undertook the creation and development over a 4-year program to develop the databases and analyses that we now use. So you've seen helical rolled out. That was a strategic step forward to move into our own databasing system. We've seen genetic tools for crossbreds rolled out, like Wagyu feeder check as an example. We updated our selection indexes, so we've gone from doing breed object indexes with breed plan through to fully independent indexes run with Abacus Bio. So we've got the breeder feeder index, F1 terminal index and full blood terminal index. Last year at this meeting we announced the publication of genetic diversity values. That's where we look at the genotypes for all of the animals that we have in the population, and we look at the variation of those animals from the rest of the population to work out where that interesting genetic diversity lies. We implemented genomic inbreeding, so that's where we calculate how much of the genotype is actually inbred at a molecular level. We've published that, and now we're in a position of developing and implementing new traits off the back of the Wagyu Progeny Test Program. So this is a very busy slide, but it shows you starting in 2021, in February 2021, on the left-hand side, that's when the board undertook review of the capabilities that AWA had available to it and undertook an investigation of all the capabilities that were available worldwide to be able to work out what were the capabilities that were going to be best matched for our future. In June 2021, that investigation was finalised. We released an expression of interest in September 21. In February 2022, we reviewed all of the applications that had provided a response to that expression of interest, and from that point forward, we've delivered all of those programs that you've seen that I've just gone through there. So up to the point now where basically we're running our own internal genetic evaluation. We have that pipeline built within the AWA. The helical database basically pings that pipeline once a week. Once that pipeline gets pinged, all of the data that we have gets extracted and used to produce new Wagyu breeding values. So we're in a position now where we're running Wagyu breeding values side by side with breed plan estimated breeding values and comparing those, and we're going to keep doing that up until February 2026. So in February 2026, we'll be launching Wagyu breeding values. I'm going to hand over to Dr. Hassan Alaloo very, very shortly. But the Wagyu breeding values that we are able to calculate for you have a very high correlation with existing EBVs and indexes, but they have updated parameters. So we now have more than twice the data that was used to estimate the parameters in our genetic evaluation to what we had in 2021, 2022. So we have much more accurate parameterization of the model that we use for the genetic analysis. So we've got improved trait estimation, and Matthias will walk you through some of the changes that we're seeing with traits like milk and eye muscle area. We've obviously been aware that members have felt that the milk trait in particular wasn't really reflecting what they were seeing in the population in general, and to some extent eye muscle area was not working, I guess, as you would expect from a Wagyu breeding point of view in looking at the genetics that we were providing or the estimated breeding values that we were providing. So the new Wagyu breeding values are updated with new parameters that we think more accurately reflect those traits in Wagyu. So we've been working also on net feed intake. We have about 2,000 net feed intake records over around 100 sires now. That's certainly enough for us to start estimating whether or not there's a relationship, a genetic component to feed intake, net feed intake and average daily gain in Wagyu, and we'll be publishing WBVs on those traits also in February. And finally, we've been working with Professor Kachida and the MIJ lab on measurements of new fineness index. So that's a way of estimating marbling fineness in a ribeye. So we've completed that work now, and with the new parameters, we'll be publishing a WBV for new fineness index. So on that, I just wanted to acknowledge two people. Dr. Hassan Alaloo is our ARC Centre for Predictive Breeding Research Fellow. So he commenced with us about 6 months ago. We have a 5-year project funded through the Australian Research Council where we are employing Hassan. And Hassan, who works at the University of New England, actually sits inside the AWA and helps us with basically running quantitative genetics problems. And the other person to recognise is Matthias Suarez, who will be up on stage a little bit later. Matthias has been with us since February, and really the core part of his work has been delivering this genetic evaluation pipeline with Hassan. So on that, I'll hand over to Hassan. Hassan, can you just take us through some of the data, please, on the AWA genetic evaluation?